Hello there. I'm so glad you stopped by. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and send this video to your loved ones. It really helps the channel grow. Let me know where you're watching from. It's important to me. Let's get started. Liam was a man who lived by routine. Each morning began at the same precise moment. He brewed his own coffee, listened to the news while fastening the buttons of his shirt, and mentally lined up the day's obligations. Every step felt rehearsed, like a well-worn melody echoing through his daily life. He and Claire had shared a home for nearly 8 years. Although they'd never spoken vows, their existence together mirrored that of a couple long committed. Liam handled the bills without hesitation, washed the car faithfully every Saturday, and rewatched the same old films Claire adored, just to catch the joy in her expression. For him, habit equaled dependability. He didn't believe in showy displays of affection. His love lived in his unwavering presence. Claire, on the other hand, flourished in the unpredictable. She was impulsive by nature, often abandoning jobs that no longer excited her, and changing her hairstyle as easily as flipping a page. Liam never viewed her spontaneity as a flaw. He saw their contrasting temperaments as complementary. He was the grounding force, and she the breeze that kept things alive. On a Tuesday evening, Claire casually mentioned she was meeting her best friend, Sienna. Liam sat at the kitchen table, eating a quiet dinner of rice, vegetables, and grilled beef he had made himself. Claire walked out of the bedroom in a vivid red dress and heels. He glanced up, offered a small smile, and said with mock curiosity, "Going somewhere fancy?" though he already expected the answer. She laughed, replied that it was just dinner with Sienna, gave him a quick kiss on the forehead, picked up her purse, and swept out the door, as always, in a rush. He lingered after dinner, cleaning the dishes, wiping the countertops, and eventually deciding to head out for dessert. A small diner near his office served his favorite apple pie and coffee. It was the kind of place where they greeted you by name and already knew your order. As he sat waiting, he noticed a familiar face, Blake, a friend from high school. They exchanged greetings and ended up sharing a booth. Blake asked how things were, and Liam gave a tidy summary. Work was steady, life at home was uneventful. Claire had gone out to see Sienna. Blake paused mid-sip and gave Liam a puzzled look. "Sienna? She's in London, man. Just started a job there. We chatted yesterday." Liam felt something shift inside him, cold, slow, unsettling. His face betrayed nothing, but deep within, a quiet signal began to sound. He gave a small nod, deftly changed the subject, thanked Blake for the company, and left sooner than he normally would. Sitting in his car, he didn't turn the key right away. That one piece of information, Sienna being overseas, spun through his thoughts like a puzzle piece jammed into the wrong place. Claire had said she was out with her. The story didn't track. Perhaps she'd meant a different friend. Maybe it was all a simple slip. But Claire had only ever referred to one Sienna as her best friend. The dress, the heels, the rushed goodbye, all of it had felt routine. Until now. Just before midnight, the front door opened softly. Claire tiptoed in, her shoes swinging from her fingers. Liam sat motionless on the couch, the television casting light over his still form. He wasn't really watching anything. She smiled as if nothing were out of the ordinary. She tossed her purse onto the side table, let her heels drop to the floor, and commented on how disappointing the food had been. She spoke of Sienna's excitement about some new opportunity, said they'd spent the night catching up. Her words came easily, fluidly, like reciting lines from a familiar play. Liam didn't challenge her. He murmured a neutral, "uh-huh," his voice stripped of inflection. No suspicion, no judgment, just a calm that seemed almost clinical, as though he were observing, waiting. Claire, perhaps reassured by his silence, kept talking, complaining about the traffic, the restaurant's heat, how Sienna sent her love. Liam nodded again, reached for the remote, and turned the volume up. She lingered briefly, eyeing him now and then, maybe expecting a question or some reaction. but Liam gave her none. He sat as still as a man watching a story he'd already seen unfold, word for word. Internally, he catalogued every falsehood. Outwardly, he remained composed, like someone quietly preparing to step beyond the life he'd known, a life that no longer included her. While Claire climbed into bed, Liam stayed where he was, eyes locked on the ceiling. His mind had already crossed the threshold. All that remained now was the follow-through. By dawn, he stirred before his alarm. He lay there, unmoving, as the pieces from the night before settled into place. From the other room came Claire's humming as she got dressed, carefree as always. Liam got up, pulled on a pair of jeans, smoothed his hair, and stepped out with a calm expression. But beneath that steady exterior, something had changed. The stillness had hardened. It had become resolve. A persistent tension lodged in his chest like a weight that refused to shift. Rest became elusive, impossible really, until he could confront the reality, raw and unfiltered. So he made a choice. He would observe. Not with accusations, not through confrontation. He would discover the truth with restraint, with quiet resolve. He would wait, calmly, deliberately. As part of her nightly routine, Claire left her phone plugged in on the kitchen counter before bed. Liam, whose work in refrigeration systems had made him fluent in digital tools, was no stranger to subtle tech interventions. The next morning, while they ate breakfast side by side, he silently installed a location tracking app on her phone. It was quick, inconspicuous, untraceable, not invasive, just enough to confirm if her words matched her whereabouts. He finished his coffee, pressed a kiss to her cheek, and left as though it were a day like any other. In the days that followed, he watched without altering anything. He noted her movements, times, streets, habits. When she claimed she'd be working late to finish reports, he was already following her location in real time. And indeed, she was at the office. But things shifted on a particular Friday. That afternoon, Claire mentioned she had a late meeting, followed by drinks with colleagues. Liam responded with a casual nod. He didn't flinch, didn't react, like someone reading a story whose ending he already knew, yet still turning each page with care. After she left, he waited a few minutes, then opened the tracking app. He traced the signal as it veered away from the downtown core and drifted through quieter streets. Eventually, the signal came to a stop in a sleepy neighborhood lined with modest homes and low fences. Liam parked several blocks away and continued on foot. From across the street, he saw her, Claire, stepping out of her car alongside another man. They entered the house together. She laughed. Her expression held a softness he hadn't seen in her for a long time. He took out his phone and captured a few photos. Nothing explicit, yet to him, they spoke volumes. He remained still for a while, simply watching. She appeared happy, relaxed, just not with him. Nearly a decade of shared memories, he realized, had been bartered away on an ordinary, unnoticed side street. He exhaled slowly, walked back to his car, and sat motionless behind the wheel. He stared into the rearview mirror. No tears came, only certainty. Only the quiet truth that she had made her decision, and that decision was betrayal. When he returned home, he opened his laptop and began sketching out the first moves of his departure. He browsed for apartments in distant, unremarkable neighborhoods. Small, practical spaces, just enough for him and the essentials he still valued. He saved 2 listings and scheduled viewings for the next day. Then he turned to their finances. Bit by bit, he transferred modest amounts from their shared account into a private one she didn't know existed. Each withdrawal was minimal, nothing that would raise alarms unless she actively checked, which she rarely did. After that, he began gathering important documents, passport, certificates, archived files. He separated what was vital and disposed of the rest. It felt like clearing a site before construction, removing debris before rebuilding. And strangely, The process brought him peace. That evening, Claire came home late. She blamed an overlong meeting, complained about her boss, mentioned a new team member who talked too much. Liam smiled, nodded, asked a few questions to appear attentive. Not long after, she went to bed. He stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts weren't tangled in heartbreak anymore. What mattered now was self-respect. He wouldn't cling to a hollow replica of love. He would walk away, not in anger, but with clarity. In the days that followed, he finalized every detail. He toured both apartments and selected the second, simple, full of light, with easy access to transit and a parking space. He paid the deposit and 2 months' rent up front. Quietly, he began moving out his belongings: photographs, clothes, favorite novels, essential papers, always while she was away. He submitted his notice for the house lease. His name alone was on it. The landlord replied with a courteous acknowledgement. Everything unfolded smoothly, as if it were all happening on schedule. And with every completed step, Liam felt less burdened. There was no more guessing. He had seen what he needed to see. He had absorbed it. Now he was responding. He approached the process with the same precision he applied to his job, dismantling faulty systems, removing damaged parts, rebuilding with intent. Only this time, it wasn't machinery. It was his life. And the malfunctioning part was Claire. The morning he decided to go, Liam woke early. Calm and measured, he dressed, jeans neatly folded from the night before, and made himself a quick cup of coffee in the kitchen. Claire remained sound asleep, curled up on her side, untouched by the quiet upheaval unfolding around her. But for Liam, everything had already shifted. His path forward was fixed. Every item on his checklist had been completed. The new apartment was secured, essentials already moved in, bills were settled, and the lease on their shared home had been formally ended. The move-out deadline was now just 14 days away. He took the final sip of his coffee, exhaled with deliberate calm, and reached for the envelope he'd carefully assembled the night before. He placed it in plain view on the kitchen table. Inside were documents, undeniable evidence of her betrayal, the lease termination agreement, the spare house key, and the ring he'd worn every day, a habit born not of love, but out of a fading sense of duty. Though the weight of it all still pressed against him, he didn't hesitate. This was not a rash choice. It had been methodically thought through. With only a backpack carrying the last of his belongings, he stepped outside with the quiet assurance of someone who had finally chosen self-worth over emotional wreckage. As he drove toward his new beginning, his thoughts were steady. He felt no need to look back, no anxiety about what lay ahead. All the pieces had been put in place. The stillness in the car felt like the final chord of a long, discordant melody. When he arrived, he unlocked the door to his new apartment, dropped the bag to the floor, and took a seat. For the first time in what felt like ages, there were no questions waiting for answers, no expectations pressing in. No need to justify or explain. This space was his, unchallenged and completely his own. Hours later, Claire stirred alone. Her hand reached instinctively toward Liam's side of the bed, finding only a void where warmth used to be. Still half asleep, she assumed he was just in another room, maybe out briefly. She wandered through the house, footsteps slow, sleep giving way to a vague unease. Everything appeared unchanged, but the silence felt strangely permanent. She called his name twice. No reply. She returned to the bedroom, pausing at the open closet. Her eyes scanned the empty hangers, realizing half the wardrobe was gone. Dread took hold. She hurried to the kitchen, spotting the envelope on the table. Her hands shook as she tore it open. The papers inside hit her like cold wind through an open door. Lease termination. Photographs, grainy but unmistakable, capturing her and the other man entering the house together. And then, the ring. Plain, still, and bearing more weight than any shouted accusation ever could. She sat motionless for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, she reached for her phone. The call went to voicemail. She tried again, and again. She began typing frantic texts, pouring emotion into them, only to delete each one before sending. More calls, 3 more tries. Still nothing. She rose and moved through the house like someone walking through old ruins, every step touching some hidden mine of grief. Finally, she called the other man. Her voice was thin as she told him Liam had discovered everything and left. She asked if he could be there for her. He paused, mumbled something about being busy, said he hadn't meant for things to go this far. The call ended shortly. He didn't even ask if she was okay. Claire sank to the living room floor, dazed and numb. Eventually, she messaged a colleague she'd occasionally gone out drinking with, hoping to find a place to stay. She explained as calmly as she could. The response was courteous, but dismissive. The place was full, and it wasn't a convenient time. Best of luck, the message ended. Another door closed. Her mind began to spiral. She scoured rental listings, looking for something small, something cheap. Her parents lived far away, and the bridges between them had long since burned. The next morning, she found a tiny unit available immediately. It was far from ideal, but it was within reach financially. A week later, she loaded up her car with whatever she could fit, bags of clothes, scattered personal items crammed into boxes, and left. The new apartment was a few blocks from work, in a crumbling building with dim hallways and a lingering smell of damp. She carried everything herself, climbing the stairs alone. No one greeted her. No one asked how she was doing. She unlocked the door and stepped into a space marked by stained floors and peeling paint. She dropped her things and slumped to the ground, surrounded by the remnants of a life hastily dismantled. She stared up at the ceiling, trying to grasp how quickly everything had disintegrated. She scrolled through her unsent messages to Liam, still unanswered. She considered writing one more. She didn't. In the days that followed, she tried to carry on, but the air around her felt heavier. The restaurant they once loved now felt like a stranger. Dinner became frozen meals, eaten alone. At work, she wore a professional mask, but the whispers had already begun. Quiet, inevitable, and spreading. There was nothing left to clarify. Her new apartment only served to highlight what she'd lost. The difference was undeniable. And even in Liam's silence, she could feel the certainty behind his choice. Elsewhere, in the calm of his own space, Liam could finally breathe. The apartment was modest, nothing grand, but it was his. And that was everything. It was a place where quiet rested heavily in the corners, and a sense of dignity hung like mist in the air. Here, he could finally breathe without effort. The room was stripped to its essentials by choice. A new mattress on the floor, a small stove for simple meals, a foldable table. The walls remained blank, unmarked by memories or relics of a former life. His phone sat out of reach, no longer buzzing with apologies or missed calls. The first nights in solitude felt strange, but not painful. He began sleeping early, waking to still mornings with a sense of clarity. He wandered without destinations, cooked with intention, flipped through old books he once meant to finish. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was no need to filter his thoughts or pretend to be someone else. His leaving had said everything that needed to be said. Soon, Liam found himself smiling again, effortlessly. At work, he kept pace, met deadlines, shared casual jokes, as though life had quietly turned a corner. Meanwhile, Claire was slowly trying to put her days back together. Her new place felt more like a shadow of her former home than a fresh start. Now and then, she found herself near places they used to visit. In those moments, a sharp remorse would rise within her. She sent messages every so often, brief, tentative attempts to reach across the silence. She said she missed him, that the chaos of routine had made her forget what mattered, that she hadn't meant to let things fall apart. But Liam remained silent, unwavering. That chapter was over. Eventually, she came to understand. Some choices carry a price too high, and not every regret earns an answer. Then, on a quiet Saturday, a knock came. It was a neighbor needing help with a faulty heater. Liam spent the afternoon with wires and tools, testing circuits and making it work. When it was done, the neighbor offered him a cold drink, and they ended up talking until the sky darkened. For the first time in years, Liam allowed someone to get close, just a little. There was no bitterness, no need to retell the past. He simply said that starting over is hard, but for some people, it's the only way forward. Later, stepping back into his room, he looked around and felt something unexpected. Peace. The ache had loosened its grip. The love had passed. But his sense of self had remained intact, and that was his salvation. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.